and welcome back to Masked Monologues, the anonymous podcast for creatives. I am your anonymous host, AKAGIRL, and I'm so thrilled that you are joining us here today. I want to ask you to leave a review at the end of this podcast episode or to share with a friend or family member if you enjoy it. And if you want to connect with us, feel free to visit our website at www.tribestune.com. Feel free to chat with me on the chat box, leave any comments, any notes. We'd love to hear from you. And with that being said, I will let you proceed with the episode. Today, I have George McConnell here with me. He's going to tell us about what he does and his journey.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is George McConnell. I started an Etsy business about 5 years ago, and I had pretty good success with it. Last year, I made over $1 million on just one of my shops. And I always decided when I did hit that type of mark, I wanted to give back. So I started a YouTube channel about 4 months ago where I help and teach people how to start an Etsy business themselves and learn from my mistakes so that they can hopefully achieve their dreams as quickly as possible.
Okay, so I've got a lot to ask about this just because I was someone who started an Etsy business back in 2018, as I recall. So it's been a while, and now when I look back and I go to Etsy, I've just seen how saturated it's become. There's so many more products, so much more competition. So you said that last year you made $1 million on your Etsy shop. Were you doing it prior to that? How long have you had your business for?
So I started it at the end of 2018. And so it was really like 2019, it was actually officially launched. From there, I still had a full time job at the time, and it wasn't supposed to be anything. I had previous businesses before. I've always been an entrepreneur, always sold things, even when I was a child. So I was just used to it. And I didn't think anything of it, threw a couple things online, and it just ended up taking off.
Yes, no, if I can recall correctly, I think 2018 or 2019 was when Etsy started to become this platform for crafters, for creatives, entrepreneurs, people who were small business owners. Is that when you found it really blew up for you?
Yes, actually. So I come from a technical background, technology wise. I worked for huge companies like Samsung and Sharp. So most of my other businesses were all revolved around that, cell phones or something electronic. This Etsy business was actually completely out of the blue, and it was literally leather. So I would put leather online. And because, like you just said, it really became that hub for craft suppliers. That's how I gained so much success so fast. And of course, with that success, I had a lot of issues and I had a lot of mistakes along the way because of that. And having that on there, those people were migrating there to purchase that item.
Yes, and now I want to ask a question. Since you had this background in technology, what did you know about leather? Because that just seems a bit out of the blue. It seems like something completely distant. I'm wondering if you had any experience with leather making before, or you just picked up some leather and thought maybe I'll sell it on Etsy.
I actually had no experience. I had a business prior to that. It was cell phone cases. I purchased a cell phone case with some leather on it, and I was like, I could actually make this cheaper and better quality. So that's what I did. And I started selling that using my own website, and I made pretty good money, but not enough to justify quitting my 9 to 5. So then that's when I took all the leather, threw it online, and the rest is history.
Okay. And you say that you've had a lot of experience with technology. I want to know if any of those skills that you used in technology was transferable to your business on Etsy. Maybe it was marketing, maybe it was just product descriptions, creating products that you believe would appeal to others, or how did your background contribute to your success on Etsy?
So in 2006, I joined Samsung and I worked for them. And back in 2006, they really weren't known for TVs yet. They were known for their cell phones, but not their TVs. So during my tenure there, I was there for 10 years. I got to see that company build and grow to what it is now. And in 2006, by the end of that year, we dominated the TV market. So I had a lot of insight and a lot of understanding on how to market and how to push things and how to be seen by consumers. And throughout the years, I got to experience a lot with that company, and that company taught me pretty much everything about how to sell on e-commerce or even be noticed and how to have people navigate through your site and what they're looking for and what they're not looking for.
No, that's wonderful. I want to ask you now, how do you create product descriptions that you believe would resonate with your consumer, with your audience, your customer? Because I know a lot of people who are starting out as entrepreneurs, maybe starting out on Etsy, they want to write a good product description, even if they have, let's say, a Shopify store or their own website where they're directing traffic to it themselves. I believe that having a good description either convinces someone to add the product to cart or just move on to the next product or continue on to the next website. Can you tell me how you approach your product descriptions and if there was anything that you found had worked better for you?
So a lot has changed in the recent years. So I'm just going to give you a little insight back to then, which descriptions were important and they're not so much now. I'll get back to that in just a moment. Back then, you'd want to write a description that made them have some sort of emotional connection with that item because most purchases are made on impulse. And if you can make them purchase it and click it without even knowing that they're hitting the buy button, you already have something sold. If they have to think about it, and they can't see themselves with that product, or you don't actually put them, say, if you're selling shoes, you want them to actually feel like they're putting those shoes on with the description that you have. Now, in the more recently, a lot of the descriptions are overlooked, even if you go to Amazon. So when you're on Amazon pictures, and everything is told inside those pictures now. Same thing with Etsy. If you could sell somebody based off your pictures and you can have all the information in that picture, but not too much where it's like overbearing, but just enough that they can see that picture, the quality, understand everything it's about without needing to go to the description, you'll have them sold in that.
Okay, so you're placing more emphasis on the visual aspect of the product. And I want to know, as someone who was just starting out with this business, because you said you just grabbed some leather that you were trying to use to make these cell phone cases and you put it on Etsy, how did you create your images? Did you learn about photography? Did you get a friend to do the photography? Or how did you approach the entire product curating?
It's really fun. Like my life, if I ever tell it from start to finish, it's just everything comes around full circle. So I loved photography when I was younger. And even when I was 18, I actually used to be hired by Nopi, which is a huge car like magazine, as well as they would have shows. And they would hire me to take photos of their models and their cars, and they would pay me for the day. So I have a lot of photography background, which did help. However, seeing how everybody else shot their pictures and displayed their pictures. What set me apart is that I wasn't part of that type of community. I didn't understand leather in a sense of this is the type of picture you need to take. So I took pictures like I was taking pictures of a car back in Nopi, where you wanted to stand out so much that people stop and gaze and look at it. So my pictures were in that type of realm of I wanted you to be scrolling, and when you saw my picture of my leather, you stopped and you just stared and you wanted it right then and there. You wanted to click and see more. And I feel like that actually helped me, but it's really based off of my life experiences on that.
Yes. And I want to ask now, I go on Amazon, I go on Etsy, I go on basically any marketplace you can find, and product descriptions that also have, sorry, product images that also have text on them. And I want to know if you'd suggest to incorporate text on your product images, because I know a lot of people will show you dimensions, so they'll write this product can do this or this is used for this. And have you noticed that has helped you with any of your e-commerce websites or e-commerce stores?
Yes. As I said earlier, descriptions were huge back in 2018, 2019. And then for some reason, things just took a turn. Their attention span isn't as much. So having that sort of information on your picture is key to your success. And you don't need to have it on that first picture because the first picture, you need to be so vibrant and outgoing that you want to click on it. Then from their second photo, you need to tell a little bit about it. Third photo, maybe dimensions. You want to tell the entire story in those photos of how good your product is.
Yes. And now I want to ask, since you have so much experience with, I'd say, photography and capturing people's attentions, how do you implement this into your YouTube channel? Because I know that you've got your YouTube channel where you try and educate people on how to start an Etsy store, how they can gain success and momentum on Etsy. And I want to know how that capturing people's attentions has been incorporated into your videos.
So honestly, probably has not been incorporated at all. And the reason being is because I'm new to YouTube. I have no idea about it. I never expected to be a face of anything. I'm not used to it. I ramble sometimes, but everybody enjoys it. They leave me comments saying, ramble on, give us the information, and they love what I have to say because I'm just straightforward. I tell you how it is. Being as that I'm a guy, literally, I could work from my kitchen table and that's it. So coming onto YouTube, I literally was sitting behind a window and a light was coming flashing in, like shining off my head, trying to change it up, add a little things in the background so it's not just in a blank canvas per se. But it's nothing outlandish. It doesn't really show anything crazy. And I don't really feel like that's needed or necessary at this moment. I just want to give that content out. And since I'm giving the information out for free, I don't think a lot of people care too much about me being in like a nice studio or anything like that. Maybe eventually I'll upgrade that. But for right now, I just threw it in a random bedroom and good to go.
Okay, and can you tell me when you started your YouTube channel and about how regularly you post? Because I know some people, YouTube channels, you post one video and then you leave it for 3 months and it's like, why aren't I getting any views?
Yes, no, I hear that. So I do try to post 1 or 2 a week. I started back on actually February 29th, and the reason I did my first actual video for teaching people on the 29th is just because it was a leap year, and I was like, "That's pretty cool." I know that sounds stupid, but that's the reason I launched it on February 29th, and then I tried to get 1 to 2 videos out each and every single week. There are some weeks that I do miss that week, and it's just because things get a little hectic. YouTube's not my full-time thing. I do have other businesses, and sometimes I do get taken away with that, but I am trying to be more consistent, and I actually just, launched a Instagram, which will allow me to just do 30-second videos or even 60 seconds, which I'll be able to do a lot more than sitting in front of a desk and recording things.
Yes. And now I want to ask, because I believe you touched on this on a previous podcast episode. You say that all the momentum, all the audience you gain on YouTube, it's not a great idea to send them to your Etsy store. Can you talk about why that is? Because I know you said that Etsy looks at conversions as opposed to the amount of traffic coming to your store.
Yes, your conversion rate is very important. So if you ever do send out your link to your actual store or your listing, you need to make sure it's your target audience. Otherwise, you're just getting views and no purchases. And it's like a website where you have bounce rate. The more the bounce rate is, the less that Google would say they're going to push you on that first page, right? Same thing with Etsy. If somebody comes to your store, doesn't purchase and leaves, that's not what they want. They want them to either purchase from you or stay on Etsy for a longer period of time. So you need to make sure that you target your exact audience in order to get them in there and make a purchase. And then the more purchases you can gain in a small time frame, the faster Etsy will push you. They'll push you to that front page. They'll push your stuff on emails, on social media. They will literally do the work for you as long as you could target your audience and get those sales quickly for them.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more because I've spoken about this extensively. To be honest, the other day I was just speaking to a social media manager, and he was talking about there was this account that he was working with. It had 13 million followers. So they decided to test this product, put it up on a story, and see how many purchases they would get. And for someone with 13 million followers, they only got 25 orders, which is crazy. That's like
Yeah.
a low conversion rate. And he was saying he was working with this other account that maybe had under 100,000 followers, but they were getting so many conversions. I think he was making about 30 that month from the 100,000 followers, which is like a way higher conversion than 25 orders. So I completely understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, with that said, I just want to touch base on that. It's a lot of people think that the number is so important, especially on social media. They think that number of 13 million is a key and that's where I want to get. But like you just even said, and how they even prove that is it really depends on who your audience is. If your audience is loyal and say you even have only just 1,000 subscribers, you can make more money with just those 1,000 people than you will with a million. because they're just loyal to you.
Yes. And now I want to talk about Etsy. So I know Etsy changes up its algorithm, or I don't know if it's like what its algorithm is based on. But can you speak about what Etsy looks for when it comes to products or maybe promoting stores, putting them higher on the page ranking?
I'm actually creating a video on this right now on what happens with the algorithm changes. And pretty much I'll touch base on what to do after when I say how to get on the front page. First, how to get on the front page is you just need to make more sales in a short amount of time. The more sales you can do in a short amount of time, the more they will push your product as well as your entire store. And that's never going to change. That's not even an algorithm thing. It's just a way that they push you. As far as algorithm, they changed their algorithm a lot. Last year, I counted 5 times alone that they changed it, and each time they change it, you really have no idea what they've done. And sure, they'll release a statement saying, "Hey, we changed this and that," but really you don't get the full story of everything that they've done. So I tell a lot of people to just not do anything. Don't make changes to your listings, don't update your pictures, don't do anything for at least a week and a half. Then after you start to see your sales maybe come back, because usually when they do an algorithm change, you lose your sales like instantly. You can have 100 sales a day, and then next thing you know, you have 50. And it's really confusing. So people go into a panic mode. They start updating things, trying to figure it out, and they're really screwing themselves at the end of the day because you don't know what they changed. Now, if you wait that entire week and okay, my sales came back, but they didn't come back completely. Now you can start looking at newer stores and figuring out, okay, this newer store they're pushing, what are they doing differently? And whatever they're doing differently is what they changed in the algorithm.
And now I'd like to ask, you're an entrepreneur, so obviously what comes inherent with entrepreneurship is a lot of discipline. I'd say sticking to a routine, finding out what works for you, and being adaptable, learning quickly. Can you tell me some of the challenges you've faced as an entrepreneur and how you've worked to overcome them?
That's actually a good one. Every time that you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna fail. And anytime anybody ever asks me, how can you be successful in business? The first thing I always tell them, and they hate when I say this, but it's so true. You need to be ready for failure. I failed so many times in my life, and you have to pick yourself up and keep on going. You don't have to look at it as you failed. You look at it as it's a lesson you learned. And I've learned a lot of lessons throughout my life and my journey, and they've cost me a lot of money, but I've learned them. And because I've learned them, now I can gain that momentum faster than I would have previously, or if I never learned those and never had those failures. So that's one thing that's important that a lot of people need to understand is you're going to fail. And that failure, you can either look at it as I give up, or you can look at it as a lesson that you can use.
Okay, and now I would like to ask, so for entrepreneurs, I believe there's this just a common message that you have to work hard or that you have to be working all the time. And I believe that sometimes when we're working all the time, we don't find ways to make our work more efficient. Can you tell me how you balance like working and also being efficient, so you're not working harder, you're also working smarter?
Yes, that's very important to always work smarter, not harder. And what I do personally is I time myself. So if I do something, have a certain amount of time frame that I have to get it done. And when you do that, it actually pushes you harder. Imagine if you were cleaning a house and you said, I have to clean my house today. Okay, it'll get done, but you're probably going to sit on the couch for a couple hours before you start cleaning. Now, if you said, I need to get this house cleaned in 30 minutes, guess what? That house is going to be cleaned in 30 minutes. So if you put time frames on each thing that you do, you'll accomplish more in a faster time frame. And you can even get 2 or 3 days done in just 1 day if you do it that way.
Yes. And now I want to know, since you're someone who manages businesses and then you also have this YouTube channel going, you appear on podcast interviews like this. How do you structure your day and how would you advise somebody who's maybe has a lot of hats on and is switching those hats constantly to structure their day, how they can achieve more without being burnt out?
The best thing to do is to hire somebody sooner than you think. I went months without hiring anybody, and I ended up working 16-hour days because of that. I would literally sleep at my warehouse at times. But being able to delegate things and pay for different services or have things automated gives you more time to do things and you're not stuck always behind a computer, always running back and forth and doing things. You need to make sure that you could delegate and you need to have people that you can trust in order to do.
And since you're someone who started off just doing this as a side hustle, I'd say, and then it just grew for you, how did you go about acquiring good workers, training them, and advising them about what you do, and making sure that the product didn't depreciate in quality so that you still had a good quality product, you were still sending out your orders, but you were also delegating it to somebody else so that you could focus more on what mattered the most? Because for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, they're reluctant to hire someone because they think to themselves, no one's going to do it like I'm going to do it. And they don't want to let go and let somebody else manage something. So I want to know how you overcame that or if that was even an issue for you.
So there's two parts of that. First one is, as an entrepreneur, you need to understand that nobody's going to care about your business like you do. So if you do hire somebody, yes, they aren't going to look at it the same way as yours because it's not their business. So if you can get that out of your head right from the start, it makes the hiring decision much easier. Then the second part is me hiring somebody because I was filling orders at such a fast pace and at sometimes it was 300 orders a day. I needed somebody that was used to being on their feet and constantly working. So I looked for people that were bartenders or waitresses. And I ended up finding a waitress and she would work 2 shifts. So I knew that she was perfect and I paid her twice as much.
Oh, that's a good way to find employees because you realize that they're in an industry that requires X amount of skills and these types of skills, and you think, I want those skills. So I might just go over and find someone who's done this and they can apply those skills to this. That's a smart way of looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. It's out of the box thinking. I could handle the back end at that time, and now I have somebody handle back end. But at the time, I could handle the back end, and she handled all the orders, and we got done twice as fast. But obviously, I needed a workhorse and waitresses. I mean, you got to give it to them. They are on their feet every day, and how they can stand for that long, I have no idea because I would need to sit down every 15 minutes. So,
Yes, no, I understand you. I'm not someone who's like wildly active. So it's after 5 minutes, I think I need to sit down.
same here.
And now I want to ask, you said you started e-commerce websites prior to having your Etsy web stores, your Etsy platforms. Can you tell me why you believe Etsy is a good platform to grow on, or have you tested other marketplaces out there like Amazon? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. There's so many platforms, marketplaces that they have for selling products. So why is Etsy your first choice?
So Etsy brings the customers to you versus if you own your own website, nobody knows who you are. You are how you bring customers in and how much money you would have to spend in advertising and constantly on social media to get known. It's just virtually impossible. Whereas Etsy owns the platform, Etsy brings the customers in. You just right there save so much money.
Yes. And now I want to know when it comes to e-commerce, a lot of people who start traditional e-commerce websites have a mailing list or there's some method where they can track the customers that they've had before. Does
Hmm.
Etsy allow you to do this? Can you retarget old customers or how does that work?
So the customers that come on Etsy, Etsy believes that they are theirs. However, if you ask them to sign up for an email and they do, now they are your customers. So you can add that into a QR code on a thank you card. You can also put that into your email receipts or even your physical receipts saying, hey, sign up for these for a certain amount of percent off or your next order free shipping, things like that. Now, when they sign up for that email, now they're your customer and now you can market it to them. But prior to that, you can't just take their email address and send them an email because it's against the policy and Etsy would literally kick you off if they found out.
Yes. No, that's a good way because I know some people who sell on Amazon. They put their product up and they have no idea who's purchasing their product because Amazon doesn't disclose that information. And it's you don't know who you're selling to, you have no way of retargeting them. And I believe that retargeting somebody is so much easier than going out and acquiring more customers.
Oh, 100%. With how many customers come and purchase one-off products, it's crazy on when you actually break it down and say in Excel and do a little pie chart or whatnot, however you want to do it in Excel, the amount of money you make actually comes from those people that come back at least 2 or 3 times, at
Yes.
least for my business. But the majority of the one-offs didn't make me as much money as those people that came back 2 or 3 times.
Okay. And now my last question is going to be a bit vague and open-ended. But if there was one thing that you wish you knew now when starting out, what would it be? And was there anything you think you would change when it came to your businesses? It could be your Etsy business, it could be your YouTube channel, it could be any businesses prior to that. But would there be one piece of advice that you'd take away from all of that?
I honestly don't think I would change anything, and the reason being that the question, you would change this or that, it's if you did, then your life probably wouldn't turn out the way it did. If I were to tell myself younger, "Hey, don't worry and don't be upset and don't sit there thinking that you're not gonna make it because you will," then you probably wouldn't have tried hard enough. And these little things just every time you get broken down, when you get up and you keep on going, it builds that strength. It builds that resistance to failure, and you just want to keep pushing yourself. So I really wouldn't want to change anything in the failures, and some of them cost me at least 20, 30,000. I know one cost me 30,000 in failure in just a one mistake, but I wouldn't change it for the world because I'll never make that mistake again. And if I were to go into my young self and say, hey, don't do this because it'll cause that, who knows if I would do it in the future.
Yes, I
So a
know.
lot of things you always have to learn from your mistakes, and that's so important. You don't want to change anything because your path is your path and you'll get there, but you just need to embrace those mistakes and know, hey, these are lessons, and I am going to conquer and I'm going to take on the world.
When the consequences are dire, you'll definitely remember that mistake.
Yes, I've definitely put my head down. I'm a man, but I can admit I've cried at times when I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not gonna make it," or I even had to message people for gas money because I ran out of money. And I'm like, "Can you just give me $5 just so I can get home?" And it was that bad at times, but that resilience that I built from those is what made me who I am today and where I am.
No, thank you so much for joining us today. And if people want to connect with you, send you an email, maybe go to your social media, your YouTube channel, could you shout out to those and tell us what they are?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Etsy Mentor, and my Instagram and TikTok are going to be Etsy Mentor. Oh, there's just only one picture on there right now, but I promise to get more stuff on there. I just been a little busy, but I'm gonna do little like 30-second, 60-second videos on there. So if that's more of your jam, go to that. If you like the long content where I go into detail and explain every little thing, then definitely catch me on YouTube at Etsy Mentor.
No, thank you. And if you listeners like this podcast episode, please do go George some love. And if you want more episodes like this, leave a review and share with a friend or family member. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.